joke. But.
So you guys went to Honduras.
Yes.
So Creighton, explain a little bit about the mission itself, and then I wanted to pass to Justin to talk a little bit about short-term mission trips, his own background, like why that's important, and then we're gonna get Vinny's whole take on the trip, what the Lord revealed to you, how God used this in your life, and then we're gonna roll a video, and we're gonna roll some new people in, and we're gonna get this truck moving.
Sounds good. So we went down there mostly to support our friends Kenny and Nikki, who have been missionaries in Honduras for, I believe, 5 years now. For 5 years, they've been down there. They live in Siguatepeque, which is a city in Honduras. If you don't know anything about Honduras, it's not going to help you to know where it is.
It's good pronunciation.
But, thank you. So we went down there. We had the plan of building a swing set for Kenny and Nikki's kids, because a lot of the times Nikki has kids from other missionary families over to the house. So we wanted to build like a thing that they could play on and spend time outside, because having 6 kids or 9 kids or however many kids she has over is always rough, regardless of where you are in the world. While we were down there, Vinny also helped Kenny do a suspension on a Land Cruiser, which was super neat to watch, because if you've ever done a suspension, doing it without a lift sucks. But it was cool.
Watch your language.
It stinks.
Watch your language. Your mother watches this show.
It is.
Sorry, Creighton's mom.
Not after the first 5 minutes.
We also did a gumbo night for a bunch of the missionaries in the area, which JB headed up, because he's from Louisiana and he makes an amazing gumbo.
So is everybody else in that town, apparently.
Yeah, there are a bunch of people from Louisiana that live in Honduras, specifically in Siguatepeque. It's crazy. They all loved that JB was there. There was a kid who showed up in an LSU jersey. It was super neat. We also took Taylor and Tiffany, and they run 222 Missionaries Ministries International. And they are Krav Maga whizzes. Whiz is a terrible word. What would you call a Krav Maga master? You're not a Dom.
Whiz. No, it's a whiz.
Whiz?
That's,
all right. They're Krav Maga whizzes.
That's what it is. All
right, over here.
They led a self-defense course for some of the missionaries and some of the missionary families down there. We've got video of a bunch of that, which we'll be showing you guys later. It was a really cool trip. We really enjoyed it. I loved it. I've been out of the country twice, both times to go to Honduras.
So
there's just heckling.
So talk about short-term missions, the impact that it had in your life.
So,
and the whole aspect.
My first mission trip I ever went to was Honduras. It was in I think my 10th or 11th grade year of,
can we say
high school.
Providence, right?
Yeah, it was, and never thought I'd be going back to Honduras. Even though like my aunt and uncle became missionaries and they moved to Honduras and things like that. But it, and I've talked with Kenny and stuff like that about. And even Zach, we went down to Honduras back in June of last year. I just took me and Creighton down there to just go hang out with Kenny. And I talked with Kenny some, and I was like, hey, I don't like necessarily short-term mission trips, but just trips that focus on doing like VBS and things like that. And I was like, I don't like that. My first trip was to do that kind of thing. And it rubbed me raw, for lack of a better term. It's like, I don't want to do this. I'm not a extrovert. I don't want to do singing.
Let me
and
add
dance.
one thing to that. So again, being anti-VBS isn't like anti-children.
Right.
It's like, yeah, I really don't want to go down and do VBS because those kids.
But it was like it didn't fit my skill set. Like I'm not.
No,
I
for
guess
sure.
That's where I
no,
was
for
going
sure.
with that.
But I'll add, because we did that. I took a group of 30 high school kids 7 years in a row to Mexico. And we would do VBS every week. And then it dawned on me, it's like these kids in this community, they do VBS every week because every short-term mission trip that comes down here is doing VBS to the same group of kids in the area. Which is why after year 2 is hey, if we're going to do a VBS, can we go out some other place to an orphanage or some place that does you see what I'm saying? It's not like you're anti-VBS. It's okay, this kind of.
And then come June, Zach was like, "Hey, I hate to travel. I want you to go check out, see what Kenny's doing, make sure our money's being spent well, stuff like that."
That was the truth.
It was.
Make no bones about it.
Right. But anyway, me and Creighton went down there, and and hearing and seeing what Kenny and Nikki do down there, where they're missionaries to missionaries, and then getting to see like the ministry of like Jake and other missionaries down there that Kenny and Nikki get to support. It was like, I was like, this is a short-term missionary kind of trips that people should be doing. Go down there, say, what do you need us to do? And then join that venture with them instead of saying, hey, we want to come down, do VBS and go to here and go here and do this. Just go down there and be like, what do you need us to do? And that was great. Even if it was just me standing off to the side because I don't know how to work on cars that well, and just handing them a flashlight. It was, that kind of thing was,
for sure,
was
makes
worth
a big
doing.
Impact.
It does.
Handing out flashlights to people.
Yeah.
It's a significant thing.
And then,
Life altering.
So I think short-term missionary trips are great, especially for not everybody's called to be a missionary, to spend years and years and years on the mission field. But you know what? Instead of going down to the beach for a week for spring break, you can go down there and be like, hey, where do you need me? I have a set of skills. This is what I can do. And if you need me to do this, do it. I keep saying it. Like, I'm really proud of the way Creighton, first time out of the country was when we went down in June. And then the change from then to when we went down, it was great to see, because that's, when I talk about living overseas and doing different stuff, and you guys make fun of me for it.
No, we don't. What are you talking about?
Never.
But now, like, I got to see like that change that Creighton experienced. I just saw it on his face.
It's fun. Yeah.
He went from being able to spend an hour and a half in the back of he didn't want to sit in the back. He chose to, and then this time, that's all he wanted to do was sit in the bed of the truck to ride.
Yeah,
it was a good time.
He enjoyed dengue fever.
Right.
That he got from his first trip.
But like being able to experience that, and like this last time I was leading the group, which I had never done, zero experience doing that. I'm used to just going by myself.
Because, by the way, you're the missions pastor of Calvary 316
right
over the years.
Right, but it's always been me doing it by myself, like going someplace, like, yeah, I'm going to go to this place. But having to worry about me and then shifting to having to worry about other people, it gave me a different perspective of being able to sit back. Like, my main goal of getting that swing set built and getting everybody back alive was completed. And being able to watch
simple goals.
Right, they were very simple goals.
No, for
but
sure.
being able to sit back,
I know you guys.
right, being able to sit back and watch everybody else like experience things that I've already gone through, and not coming in as a first shocking, oh, there's a cow on the road. Like,
so let me jump in here
me.
and kind of like summarize that a little bit. I think what's very cool about the Snipes and about what we're doing, like, so short-term missions, there's an undeniable truth that, and I think we'll hear stories about this tonight, that, man, you just kind of like go back home thinking, man, I really hope I was a fraction of the blessing that they were to me. Like, you do go down there and it's like God does such a thing for yourself. And you're like, I just hope whatever I did was okay, But I think what's great about the way that we're doing this with the Snipes is it's very centered on, hey, Kenneth and Nikki, we're going to send a group, make this a great experience for our team, which is absolutely a ministry model, as opposed to, hey, you guys have this vision and mission for what you're doing in Honduras. We're going to send a group of people, and we, don't want to be a burden at all. We don't want to distract you from what you're called to do. We don't want you to like placate to something. But like, how can we genuinely support, enhance what you're doing? And if we can't, we'll just send you money. Like, if we can't actually do that by sending people, then let's not send people, because that's just a waste of time. We'll send money because that can help.
Right, and that's something.
Kenneth, would you agree with that? Yeah, in the background, yeah.
And that's something that I've experienced as someone that hasn't specifically gone out. Like I've gone on short-term mission trips. I've gone on more long-term mission trips, and I've experienced differences in different missionaries, and to be involved in what that missionary who's been called to that area for a longer term than just a week or a few months, to be able to say, hey, I'm here, use me how you need me to be used as a personnel boost to get done what you need to get done.
Exactly.
Is easier on me. Instead of me having to come up with different songs and dances to instead of maybe making some kids happy for like an hour and then just leaving.
It's ministry minded, purpose driven.
Right. And
it's the purpose driven mission.
It is.
We should write a book.
That'll be the name of my second autobiography.
I love it.
Yeah.
Let's move with all that in mind. Like, Vinny, have you done a mission trip? Like, have you gone on a mission? So this is a whole new thing.
Yeah.
Now you've traveled some.
A lot.
Yeah, but this was a different thing.
Yeah.
So talk about Mike's yours. Talk about your experience.
So it was. I'm on a path where, the last 5 years I've really given up control of my life and every aspect of the Holy Spirit, and very much opened my ears to the Holy Spirit. So it's when things like this come up, it's no longer if this had come up 6 years ago and Justin was like, hey, do you want to go to Honduras? I would have made 100 excuses about how I couldn't do it financially or I couldn't take the time off work. And in giving the Holy Spirit 100% control of my life, when Justin asked if I wanted to go to Honduras, I went home and booked airplane tickets that night. And then explained to my wife what I spent way too much money on.
And she was cool with it because she
was
knows
totally cool with it. And I told her, I was like, look, if we do and go where God wants us to do and go, he'll take care of it.
Right. And you even discovered grits on this story.
I discovered grits.
It's amazing. It is absolutely an amazing thing that you discovered. You've
Grits
lived in Georgia how long?
Honduras.
12 years.
Yeah, and you discovered grits for the first time.
I remember that same day, like Zach was like, hey, I need choose some people. I was like, oh, we're doing mechanic stuff with diesels. I'm like, Vinny's the perfect guy for this. And I was like, hey, you want to go to Honduras?
And it was zero hesitation and 100% Holy Spirit led. Like, it felt like that from the second you asked me to getting home from the trip. Like, it was just amazing. And the thing I appreciated the most is, I've got friends, I got buddies, I got tons of them, but I feel like,
you're super popular. You're like the popular kid in school, right?
but you don't get a whole lot of really good friends.
Truth.
And going down to Honduras and working with Kenny on trucks and building the swing set, I got another really, really good friend. I think we've spoke every single day since I got home.
Yeah, but you got to understand, Vinny did not just work on the swing set. He was cutting lumber with a chainsaw and flip-flops and shorts.
You'll see that later.
Yeah.
Lies. No, not lies.
OSHA not approved.
There's no OSHA in Honduras.
There isn't.
Also no EPA. No, I had a blast. It was fun. We went down there with a set of goals, and day one, Kenny kind of set the expectation, like, hey, if we acquire the lumber today, we did great. And we ended up acquiring the lumber. It was a whole 6.5 hour episode of us running around the mountains to sawmill after sawmill. But it was really fun experiencing that, what a day of life in Honduras is. And you don't get to go to Home Depot and pick up 6 2x4s. Like, you get swindled at one spot, and then you go to another spot and swindled a little less, and then you go to the next spot and they don't swindle you at all, and you finally get the lumber you need. But it was all really fun, and I learned a lot of patience. Like, I'm not a super patient guy. Like, I like to get things done. I like go in with a plan. And
there's a different pace in Honduras, isn't there?
Yeah, you got to be patient. So that was fun.
So, Vinny, you feel like the Lord really blessed you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Creighton, we have a video, right, that we want to share, and then we're gonna flip the room a little bit while this is going. Now go to the white shot. Yeah. So like we flipped it. We've got El Gigante back there. He's moved chairs. And Creighton, why don't you welcome to the show our
Hello,
the next crew.
welcome to the show.
The next crew. And explain what they were doing.
Yes,
It's all you, Craig.
You guys, I'm going to go to the. So you guys just saw a video of this is to my left are Taylor and Tiffany, respectively. They do Krav Maga. Tiffany owns a Krav Maga gym whose name I do not know.
Pure Krav Maga.
Pure Krav Maga, and that's in Jefferson.
Tequila.
Before we get into missions or any of this, Tiffany, can you just explain, I say to the audience, but more me, what the heck Krav Maga actually is?
It's practical self-defense in a nutshell. It is
What
used
is the
by,
nutshell?
The idea, yeah. It is used by the Israeli Defense Force,
So what's the purpose?
Israel's military.
Like, what's the purpose of it? Like, what is it?
To stop someone from hurting you. What
We
do you mean?
actually teach people how to fight.
But like,
Yeah,
do you...
for real.
We don't patty cake and go for points.
Is it defense or is it aggressive? Like, is it... Because there are certain, I know, like, disciplines that are designed for... they're offensive disciplines. Is Krav Maga offensive or is it more of a defensive mechanism of like, hey, this is how you protect yourself, diffuse a situation, move on?
All of it.
Okay.
So there's awareness involved. There's, the science of aggression. But at the end of the day, it's do whatever it takes to go home safe to your family.
How did you get involved with this? Because you own the studio.
I went to a women's self-defense course, and they pulled up vans and got the guys in like the big suits. And so they gave us a few skills, and then we tried to not get abducted, and I kicked a guy straight in his chest, kicked him into the vehicle, and considered, should I shut the door and run or just run? He ended up being my instructor later, and I was like, I am so sorry.
So that's how you got into it. Like
yeah.
it was,
and I loved it.
It was like like you, for lack of a better way to say it, you stumbled into it. Now, like that's a totally different thing from like, hey, I'm learning this thing to like I'm opening a Krav Maga studio in Tequila. Like, how did that happen?
So one of my sister-in-law actually went with me the first couple of times, and she was like, I could see you teaching this one day. I was like, what?
Wait,
Like,
Jeff has a sister?
yes.
Didn't know that. That was news to me.
And I remind her all the time, I'm like, remember when you said that? It's like prophecy. But I loved it, and it was how God actually connected with me
very cool.
after losing a child.
Wow.
And really gave me the physical representation of this is how I want you to fight mental battles. This is how I want you to fight the spiritual battles. And this is just a physical depiction and how I'm connecting with you and connecting these dots for you and with you through that grieving process, through the restoration and
Very cool.
yeah.
And so that was like, you end up, I would assume that you have to reach a certain level of the discipline to like open your own studio.
Yeah.
So you went through a bunch of training.
Yes.
How many years, like how long did that take before you're like, okay, I feel like I'm proficient enough to open a studio?
It was definitely a leap of faith because I was pursuing my personal belts. We
Yeah.
don't do belts. So I was pursuing my own as well as pursuing the instructor courses. So it was a lot of work.
So you're doing it all at the same time.
Yes.
Like, hey, why don't I do this and start a business?
Yes. Well, no, then the business came later.
The business came later.
Yeah, there was a lot that went into that, but in the short of it, it was a leap of faith. It was a 5 to 10 year goal that got moved up to a now goal,
Right.
and opened in COVID, and
That's true,
yeah, it was crazy.
Fascinating. We're going to get to the missions angle in a second, but just kind of establishing some groundwork. Taylor, for you, like what, just fly by, what's your backstory, and then how did you get involved with Krav Maga, and then how did you get connected with Tiffany? This is before we get to the ministry itself. Like, nobody knows who you guys are. We're just establishing a baseline here.
That's fair. And it's funny enough, I was talking to my buddy Josh about it before I ever started Krav, like 3 months before.
Oh, is that what the people say, Krav? It's not Krav Maga. It's
Oh,
just
yeah, Krav. So I'm talking to Josh about
Show's off the rails.
he was doing another martial art. I don't even remember what he was doing. And I was talking about getting involved. I wanted to get some energy out. I just wanted to get back in shape like I used to be, and I was bored. Cut to about 3 months later, I'm at a gas station, and some guys want to start a fight. And I was like, okay, well, there's 3 of them. So I put myself in a corner so they couldn't get behind me, and I had to draw my weapon. I didn't love that because...
When you say weapon, like...
So I carried my pistol. I had to pull it out and make a scene. Anyway, so I didn't think it was right that a 20-year-old made a dumb decision to get in a fight in a parking lot and had to die over it. I had 2 options. I could lose the fight or they could die. And I didn't like it. It shook me up pretty bad. And I remember Josh had mentioned Krav Maga being a little more aggressive and that it might be something that I would enjoy. So I went home that night, still kind of shaken up, called the gym at like 9:30 at night, and then somebody answered, which was weird, and I was not ready for it. So I stumbled through some weird half adrenaline fueled thing of I pulled a gun. I found myself in the gym, and then we're 4.5, 5 years later, I've got my black belt underneath there. We started teaching, and
Wait, I didn't.
That's the only belt.
Do we not do belts?
That's the only belt.
listen, so Krav Maga traditionally does belts. We don't in the studio. She asked me one day to help teach with a missionary training they were already doing. So I showed up to be the bad guy to get my butt kicked by everybody there. That's all I was good for.
Tiffany.
Yeah, and every
Yeah.
missionary she was training at the time. I was their crash test dummy for months. And then finally, what was his name? Came and spoke at the church. And that's when we looked at each other and we were like, hey,
Oh, Edward.
we need to pull the trigger. We've been talking about this. We've been training missionaries. We
Far-reaching.
should make this an official ministry so we can actually help. Because what was his name? It was with Edward. With Far-Reaching Ministry.
Ministries, yeah.
We talked to him after he spoke at the church, and he said the biggest thing he needed was more teams in the field. He didn't need volunteers on his teams. He needed organizations he could lean on. And that struck a chord with us. We went out that day, started looking up how to start a nonprofit, and we're here a year later talking about our first trip in the books. It's been great.
So, explain so your ministry is what and how can people learn about it?
So 222 International, what we do is train missionaries for self-defense. Because going to spread the word, spread the gospel, and touch souls is a great thing to do, but you are not a martyr if you get stabbed in the kidney for your wallet in an alley somewhere. You didn't die for your faith. You didn't advance the kingdom. You're not a martyr. You died to senseless violence. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to give people the confidence to stay on the mission field for as long as possible, and give them the ability to do that. Dads to protect their families, mothers to protect their kids to know what to do when stuff starts hitting the fan.
So the goal, the vision is let's equip missionaries, and not even just missionaries, but like, again, short-term mission trips, youth groups. So like you guys, and we've gotten together, we met at Longhorn, we talked about it all. I think it's a very cool idea, very cool application. Y'all haven't done it yet, like practically. Like in a practical setting, like going international, like setting something up. And so going with, and we talked to Kenny and Nikki, and it was like, hey, they're wanting to, like, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And it's hard to know what you don't know until you go do it, and then you learn some things.
Yeah.
And I know that what you guys went down and did in Honduras was a huge success, right, Kenny? Like
so.
Yeah, so it was the talk of the town. At first, right, it was like, yeah, you don't really know how this is gonna be.
No, people were much more excited about JB's gumbo.
Yeah, JB's Gumbo was the talk of the town.
Not a competition.
It's like this Krav Maga thing. So you guys went practical application, like we've had these dreams, this vision, but now we're gonna go and like do this. So let's start with like what part of it was super cool and was like, yes, this is the Lord, this is what we were wanting to do. And then follow that up, and you guys can separate this out however you want, of like, man, these are the things we do differently. These are the lessons that we learned. Like how did the Lord use all of this for you guys with the endeavor? So let's start with you Tiffany.
Yeah. A lot of what we also teach is the theology of self-defense. So what does it biblically say? Do you have the right to defend yourself? And when do you and when don't you? And I think I'll start with what we would do differently is be able to connect those dots a little bit more about the physical, like what I learned personally, what God taught me, and why He's leading me down this path, and be able to.
Because again, this was a very personal thing for you.
Yes.
You lost a child. Like it was like God used this in a very redemptive way.
Yes.
Yeah, that's powerful.
And be able to speak to that a little bit more earlier on. However, that's also what was really cool about this trip, because I've done it on a 3-month scale, teaching other organizations, missionaries, before they travel, where we're going into safety, how to travel, work together as a team, and the self-defense.
And even practical things like navigating an airport, making sure you're not pickpocketed. Like,
yes.
There's a lot of really like practical, like, yes, you're preparing for the worst case scenario, but it's like just the normal stuff, like their disciplines, awareness, things to consider that you wouldn't necessarily think about organically.
Right.
But that's part of the training here.
Yeah, and we have 3 months normally when we're training here.
Which you can't do.
No, you can't. We don't have that availability. So how do we scale this?
You can't stay in Honduras for 3 months.
We can. We can do it with your help.
Crane, post up that donation QR code. Just kidding.
Done. 222international.org/donate today.
Hey, man, Creighton, what are we doing?
I've never heard that web address before, but it's a great one. Hold on, wait.
Outlaw.
Say it again.
It's 222international.org/donate.
Solid.
This whole vision, again, you guys go down there. How do you think you did? Like what was your evaluation of the trip?
Yeah, so that was the part that was really cool, was they started connecting the dots a lot sooner. I didn't have to spoon feed them. So
you condensed this.
We condensed it
in 3 or 4 days.
We didn't get to go. I was like, you know what? Well, we were borrowing space on limited time, and trying to respect the people there, the culture, the space that we're in this karate studio.
Which is a thing, right? That's a thing.
I was gonna say the business that they're allowing us to use their business when, number one, they're closed. And he's not even supposed to be there. He's showing up to the gym to watch us train. Well, the first day, then he got to know us. But
there's a cool story to that, right?
Yes.
Really cool story.
Yeah, would you get to that at some point?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're trying to respect his business too.
And so we're like, okay, we're going to condense this down. We might even do it at the gumbo night, like the theology.
That would have made gumbo a lot more interesting.
But yeah, they connected those dots and they're like, oh, I see how I can use this spiritually. I see how I can arm myself for the battle using this physical representation. And so it just worked. It was really cool to see God do that in such a short amount of time, where it's never dependent on us anyways. So it was really awesome.
That's awesome. So explain this, the backstory. Because we could do a whole hour on you guys in particular, and we'll have you guys back. We'll do a whole thing, a lot more about like Krav Maga. It's like you mentioned, blew my mind, the theology of it all. I'd love to get into that. We don't have time for it, so we can set this up again in the next month or two. The only way this really worked is at a local karate studio, and Kenneth can talk a little bit about this, but he was willing to give you guys some like the studio off hours, and I think he was super sus, as the kids would say, about how this was all playing itself out.
We weren't necessarily trusted, I don't think, at first.
So explain this. There's an evolution to how that worked with him.
Yeah, no, it was great. So we get there, day one, he is not happy that we're there. He is sitting behind the desk. He is on his phone. He is actively ignoring what we are doing. The class gets done. He thanks us. He kicks us out. Like, all right, well, that went about as well as expected. I don't know how well I'd do with somebody teaching in my gym. It's all good. Day 2, he leaves. Like, what, 5-10 minutes into the training session. So we asked Nikki, like, man, I hope it was a good thing that he left. I wasn't trying to offend him. You know, I didn't want to make him mad. I'm hoping to stay on his good side. I want to use the space. And apparently it was a huge sign of respect. He trusted us enough to run his business without him being there. And he actually came to us for a couple hours of personal training where me and him got to fight, and he wanted to learn what we were teaching to.
And that was like at the
And we don't
end,
even speak the same language.
Right.
I had the most fun. I only want to teach people that I cannot speak with. It was awesome. We prayed. God showed up and answered prayer every minute of every day of this trip. It got to the point that it just felt like God was showing off how powerful he was every time we turned a corner. One of those was getting local help for our mission. I would love to teach somebody who's willing to travel and work with them to stay there and help teach the people that we've met. We have 2 people. One is a believer who does want to get involved and is wanting to train as much as he can, and he's coming up in a few months. The other one is not a believer yet, and that is, obviously a big stipulation if you're going to teach for me.
Right.
But I think we're going to be able to use martial arts and fighting to help build that bridge and help bring him over to Christ by fighting. I think it's gonna be a challenge.
I can't wait to have you guys back on, because I want to talk about, the common misconception that Jesus was a pansy. And like,
yeah, okay.
Like,
I won't get started.
There's a whole thing. We'll leave that as a tease. Like, I think there's something fun to
185,000. I'll leave it at that.
Exactly. For sure. Tiffany, what your final thoughts just about the trip and your experience and what God did for you, and just how it played out?
I think for me, one of the biggest things coming back, we talked on the plane, you get to see a different perspective of Paul's letters. And I'm not saying that, but teaching and building such a family there, with Kenny and Nikki and their community. And then coming back and leaving that community, but still having WhatsApp to be able to text.
Yeah.
It's like, you're still involved, and
the world's more global than ever.
Yeah. But it was seeing Paul's perspective of "I love you" written throughout the letters so much, and I definitely felt that leaving was harder than I thought it was going to be. Nikki became the closest I feel like I've ever had to a sister, and in such a short amount of time, because we would sit up late talking, sitting on the bed, and just about life, and it was really cool.
That was kind of an interesting dynamic, because we went down there, and like you were the only female of the group that went, and it was like for accountability and cultural purposes, it was like, all right, all the guys are going to be in one place, and it was like, hey, and Nikki was like, Tiffany could stay with us. So like, and like that detaches you from the group. There's kind of an awkwardness to that, but like, it seems like over the course of that, it's like, oh man, like that was my own ministry that I didn't realize, like to connect with a sister and develop that relationship.
Yeah. And there was some isolation feelings and division feelings. I've always hung out with the guys, had brothers. It was never, that's just how I've always been. And so there felt like a little bit of division. And I had to muscle through that. There was some prayer and going, God, I'm going to follow. Yeah.
Different culture.
I'm going to follow you and not let that be a distraction to what we're here to do. And it was really great to have Nikki step into that space.
But for what you're saying is like that ended up creating some really cool
God even used that.
Opportunities for you and Nikki to connect. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to have you guys back. We're going to talk more about your ministry, because it's broader than that. And we need to meet, because there's some other things that I think is cool. But great, we got another video we're going to show.
So, well, thanks for having me. I've been looking.
Back up. Hey man, so good to see you.
So I've been looking for a truck for several years now that fits mostly what I really want, and now it's become something that I need.
Okay, why do you need it?
Because my ministry in Honduras has become fixing missionaries' cars full time, and sometimes it involves hauling vehicles from different places in the country when they break down. And my little Toyotas just weren't cutting it, and so I needed something a little heavier duty. And I've always wanted a Ford diesel, and Zach introduced me to Vinny, and Vinny helped me find this truck, and it was in Idaho. And
So you guys had been looking for this truck.
yes, so we've been looking for this truck. I've been looking for this truck for a long time. This specific
It's a
truck.
unicorn. It's a unicorn.
They say it's a unicorn.
But for you and your purposes, because again, like for context for people that might not know, like, well, why not buy a newer truck? It's like, well, there's no parts for newer trucks. Like I did, like, forget about like the things you might not like about newer trucks, but like the practical end. Like I'm in a third world country. I need to be able to work on this truck, repair this truck, and use this truck in very practical ways. And they don't make things like this anymore.
Part of what I'm doing is consulting with missionaries and helping them decide what vehicle best fits what they're going to be doing in Honduras or what they're already doing in Honduras. And I usually preach, you should buy an older vehicle that's in really good shape, because there's going to be a better chance of you finding parts for it, a better chance of you finding a mechanic that can work on it. And overall, it ends up being cheaper. Most vehicles in Honduras are salvaged from the United States.
Right.
Flooded vehicles, crashed vehicles. Most of the time they don't have airbags. They're being held together
80% of the vehicles are from New Orleans and Katrina.
A lot of them.
That's why they're all Louisianan.
You're not wrong.
So
That's not wrong. It's true.
I preach that these missionaries should get older vehicles. Also, if you're importing a vehicle in Honduras, it's the cheapest way to do it is if it's 2005 or older. So I usually tell people to bring in 2005 or older Toyota 4x4s. And they work really well. But if I'm going to preach that, I'm going to drive old vehicles too.
Right.
And so yeah, I have a couple vehicles with 300,000+ miles.
So you found this, like Vinny helped. There was
Vinny,
a whole thing. You found the unicorn.
Yeah.
And it was like you called, you had a mechanic look at it. There was a lot of due diligence. But again, you find a vehicle in America and you're in Honduras, that requires a quick trip to America.
Right.
To buy the thing.
Yep.
Drive it to Georgia to get it tweaked.
Right.
And then you still have to take it to. So tomorrow you're driving to Honduras, right?
Right. Best friend Jake came up and I picked up in Atlanta yesterday, and we're headed to Honduras in this truck. It's a 2000 model F250 diesel, manual transmission, manual transfer case, all the specs I wanted. It is my childhood dream truck.
But practically, ministry-wise, this is the tool that you needed for what God's called you to do. Like,
yeah, it's going to be a great tool. The truck's going to last us forever. It's exactly what we need.
JB,
Yes.
have you ever been on a mission trip before?
No.
Tell me about your experience. And you'll have to get a little closer to the mic.
Oh, I don't want to move.
I know. You'll have to get closer.
How close?
You're good.
How close is too close?
I don't know.
So I mean, I had a great time. First and foremost, I mean, it was awesome to see what Kenny and Nikki do. It was very cool to be a part of kind of all the bigger things that were going on around me. I entered the trip with not a lot of expectations for me. I thought that it was cool when Justin and Creighton went, and just hearing more from their trip about what Kenny and Nikki do, hearing you talk about it, hearing them talk about it, I was like, man, I just want to go help. Like, and truthfully, like, I made the decision, oddly enough, at a potluck, and was talking to my wife about it, and she was like, you've been talking about it since Creighton and Justin went before. If you're gonna go, just buy the ticket and go.
Yeah, I think you bought the ticket before you left church.
I bought them right there at the table, right?
Right.
But I mean, in my mind, I wanted to go and just help and like get some stuff done. I wanted to, do whatever I could do to like advance the greater good of whatever the church had going on, and then like specifically in support of what Kenny and Nikki had going on. So my I don't know, this is going to sound terrible, but like my expectations for what would have been a good trip were kind of low. Taylor and Tiffany had a monster goal. Vinny had some pretty specific things that he was going to do. Justin, obviously, he was the face of the church in Creighton right next to him.
I know.
You'd have to go there, but it really works.
No doubt. But like, so there was like in the planning part of it. So you were like, hey, I'm going to go. And it was like, conversations kind of unfolded of like, okay, well, JB's going, and like you're world famous around our church for your gumbo.
World famous around Winder.
Right. But I mean, as far as Calvary 316 goes, it's we have a literal potluck that's JB's famous gumbo. That's the theme of the potluck. And so it was like, hey, let's maybe do an event or something. Like, how did that work? How did that tie in, and then how did that get executed? Like,
no, I mean, I thought, the idea that gumbo came up, or just cooking in general in big quantity, and it seemed like a plan to me. Jenny did a huge amount of groundwork to find the 1941 World War II edition aluminum pot.
Why did you need that pot? Like, explain that for people.
Well, I didn't need that pot. I just needed a big pot.
That's probably where it started. Like, you're coming on a mission trip, I think you should cook. And so
no doubt. That's why he does potlucks.
Well, and we had talked and said, it'd be really cool to have for you guys to be able to see everybody that we are trying to work with or are working with.
Yeah.
And so JB said, make it an open invite. JB had no idea how many missionaries lived in our region, but it was his idea to make this thing an open invite and just say, yeah, I'll cook for whoever comes. So we ended up having 71 people at this gumbo. We had a bunch of kids. Really cool night, and it was just like the missionaries didn't like, we've done like missionary potlucks and stuff before, but like they got to come and chill for the evening, bring their kids to hang out and play with a bunch of other kids. They didn't have to bring anything.
That's
and
right.
So
Turns out you sure
had all these people come over and hang out and get to know each other and hopefully build a little bit of community, and that was the whole goal.
I think you made the comment to me that as far as you're aware, this like organic, crazy, let's do gumbo in Honduras event for missionaries ended up being, and you correct me if I'm wrong, like as far as you're aware, like one of the largest organic gatherings of missionaries that you're aware of.
At least in our region. I mean, we've, there's retreats and like official like capacity things where missionaries all come together, but this, just having that many missionaries just come hang out. No, I don't think it's happened. I don't know, but I don't think it's happened.
The largest attended services we have at Calvary 316 is JB's gumbo. So I understand that.
Yeah.
If JB cooks it, they will come.
No, and it was, I mean, organic's a good way to put it, but we really just wanted to have missionaries come out and hang out and maybe get to know each other. People,
explain to me why that's a big thing for you.
When we moved to Honduras in 2013, Nikki and I did, just the two of us before kids. We had a really tough time on the mission field. We failed miserably as missionaries. We learned it's like, I tell people it's like Thomas Edison with the light bulb. He didn't fail at creating a light bulb. He learned like all these ways not to make a light bulb. I will say, and I don't want to play the blame game, but I feel like that lack of community was one of the things that
was a big deal.
Yeah, it was a big deal for us. We needed that. And so when we felt like we were going to come back to Honduras in 2020 or preparing in 2018, one of the things we wanted to do was try to build community with missionaries and make sure that we were intentional about that. And so food is the best way to bring people together.
It's true.
It really is. And so, there was no expectations. We got online and we did post Krav Maga before we posted Gumbo Night. And the Gumbo Night post was very popular.
Now, and it was a wildly successful thing.
Yeah.
But let's circle back a little bit, because you've told me that what 222 Ministries did, like this whole Krav Maga thing, which at first you're like, I don't know how this is going to play. Like there was a lot of like, man, we're in uncharted territory.
Yeah.
But like in talking with you and Nikki, like that was a huge hit, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was the talk of the town. I mean, people talked about gumbo, but I mean,
Of course.
people really talked about the Krav Maga
Well,
too.
they did.
I mean, it
Even the
became
night of the gumbo, they had all the kids there, and Taylor and Tiffany were working with the kids and
Yeah.
had exercises with the kids that night.
Yeah.
So I mean, even the night when everybody got together, it was an extension of the classes that they had been doing. So
That's
it was cool that worked out too.
so all of it, and you know, everything ended up being wildly successful.
That's
It
awesome.
worked out really well. The Krav Maga was really tough to get a crowd of people. Like we were like Nikki was texting people directly and being like, "Hey, I need you to come to this."
It played out.
You know,
It was great.
Our
Yeah.
friends are coming here, so can you at least show up to this thing? And
Tiffany. Oh boy.
and no, but
That's how it starts, right?
But, you know, it was a hard sell. It really was. But the people that showed up, we've got crazy reviews. You know, people coming back and just telling us how awesome it was. They didn't realize they needed it.
So
Taylor just reminded me of a family that we met during the gumbo night who was new in Honduras. How long have they been there? You remember?
A week.
A week?
8 days.
They had just moved down. And they were able to make a bunch of connections at Kenny and Nikki's house for our gumbo night.
Yep.
They weren't sure they were going to stay in country. They were able to get a bunch of roots planted.
For sure.
Which is super cool.
That's
Yeah, it's
great.
No, and that's the thing is, community is really important, and rest is really important too. I mean, Jesus, you think about going to Lazarus's house, that was his rest. That was his resting point, and we would love, for our house to be a spot where people can come and rest, and
swing.
Cook a lot.
and
Or cook a lot.
and so having all those missionaries over for gumbo night, and all they had to do was come chill. They didn't have to bring anything. They didn't have to, they just came and ate gumbo and talked.
Dude, so we're gonna roll the last
Yes.
video, and then we're gonna come back. Kenneth, share some thoughts. I'll close this out and we'll be done.
Vinny said, I just have to learn to say thank you. And that's one thing I've been trying to do, is just say thank you, because you guys you've contributed so much to us. Zach, I mean, you're on the horn with us every month, asking how we're doing, making sure that we're healthy, and that not just that we're doing good stuff, ministry wise, but you're checking in on me and Nikki, and you're checking in on our children, and that means the world to us. It really does. And then you've got these guys that come down, man. Justin and Creighton coming down and helping me out last year.
Yeah.
Just hanging out with us. And then, sending this team down and just pouring on the generosity to our family. I'm not just talking about finances, but like just coming in and loving on us. Like I said, cooking those meals all week, like Nikki.
Being seen.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and it means the world to us. And we have a huge support team that's been super faithful to us since before 2020 we moved to Honduras, and I'm thankful for all that. But just as of recently, you guys have, this trip, I mean, was a huge impact on our family this, in February, right? But yeah, just in February, I mean, you guys made a huge impact. My kids, the last year when Justin and Creighton came down, and this time, I mean, like, I wake up and walk in the kitchen and Mary and Justin are sitting in the kitchen table playing Connect 4 or Battleship or whatever. And I see all these guys out there playing a makeshift game of baseball with Jack, who loves the sport, and it doesn't exist in Honduras.
Right.
And just, coming down and loving on my family, and then also, taking it a step further and loving on the other missionaries around, and that really impacted us. We felt loved, and we appreciate you guys coming down.
Thank you so much for joining us for the Outlaw Radio Show. Fun episode. I know it was longer than normal. If you've been watching online, cool. If you tapped out at some point, cool. Check out the podcast. The whole episode will be released long form on all the platforms. Look for Outlaw Radio. If you're listening, want to check out the live stream, again, our YouTube channel is outlawradio.live. You can watch this episode in its entirety. I do that with my own podcast. Some I listen to, some I watch. And it's great to have that option, which is awesome. So have a wonderful night. We will see you guys next Wednesday night, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. God bless.